All right, I've got to address the topic of DEI. I get into this quite a bit with my friend Jeff Styles on During the Break podcast or thejeffstyles.com. You can find all things Jeff Styles talk radio icon on either one of those platforms. But he and I have this back and forth about DEI, and I got to come out and say it. And I don't represent all conservatives. I represent me, and there may be conservatives that agree with me. I'm pretty purple on a lot of things and blue on a few. I mean, I'm not a check the box across the board. I did vote for Trump. I agree with his policies. I hate his rhetoric. I think he's got bad timing on what he says sometimes. But I think he starts good conversations for our country. That's my opinion. Now, I want to back up and say that I am a supporter of diversity. I am an opponent of DEI. I do not agree with DEI. It's a mandate. I don't agree with the cultural pressure that I have to have diversity for diversity's sake. I think that is, if you go back to only hiring white people for hiring white people's sake, right? If you're white, you've got to be a better option than these other people. I disagree with that. Just like I think if you're black, you've got to be better than the other options out there for a job or a scholarship. I disagree with that. Or who you sleep with. I'm not telling you that shouldn't come into play in certain circumstances. I'm not telling you that this world is not full of grays and these, streams that cross. I'm not saying all that. I'm just saying because we have to deal with public policy, and that's the art of politics, we have to come up with some agreed upon principles, and I disagree with DEI being the first, second, third, fourth, fifth filter when you're hiring people or when you're giving away scholarships or when you're working with certain businesses. Now, if you're a business to business and you want to choose how to give your business to other companies, that's fine. That's on you. The marketplace will find that out and adjust accordingly. You either make it or break it. We've seen that. Some people call it the cancel culture. Okay, whatever. I think there's a difference between the cancel culture, I might do a podcast on this later, and the consequences of bad business decisions when it comes around marketing your products and knowing your audience. So, let me take a breath and move back over to the DEI. I do not like DEI, but I do like diversity. First of all, diversity is smart. If you own a business, having people that are different than you usually has better outcomes. And I'm not always talking about you're looking for pushback and argument for argument's sake, but first of all, how are we defining diversity? Let me actually slow down. I don't define diversity all the time. It is a component of it, but how we look, who you sleep with. Are you Asian? Are you Hispanic? Are you tall? Are you short? Do you have a vagina? Do you have a penis? Those are elements of diversity. But if I start hiring people and that is a main criteria, unless it's a specific job about different things, again, people tend to take the one-offs, the anomalies and go, look at this over here. You forgot to address this too. I'm talking about big public policy type thinking overall, not the exceptions to the rules. If that's my filter, I'm not really achieving anything. I don't know if you're capable. Being capable may be second or third on the list, or maybe first, and then I've got to go through the DI filter, which will filter you out. You may have been the best person for the job, but I have to hit a certain air quote quota, or I want the board to look like this. I want the pool of applicants to sleep with these people, so then I can get the headlines of look how kind I am, look how moral I am, look how diverse I am, and then I'm sacrificing the ability, right? We hear the word meritocracy. Well, that's great. Got to take a deep breath on this one because it's easy for me to go down rabbit holes. But I just don't understand how we have lost common sense on this topic. Of course, you should not, as a whole, as a starting foundation, all the exceptions removed, which there aren't many, there are some, you should not go, I need airline pilots, and I want to make sure they're 12% black, 14% Hispanic, 48% white, 10% women, 62% women, people that sleep with these people who live in this region. I don't think that should be an element. I want people who can fly the damn plane. I want surgeons that can do the best surgery, right? I want a tax person that can prepare my taxes. I want ABC or best at doing the ABCs. Now, if by some chance you get a pool of applicants that represent what you're wanting, fantastic. Then you can include that. Excuse me. I don't edit much of this, so you get the coughs and the phone rings and the ums and the ahs and the awkwardness of it. But I don't get this. And so part of this in my simpleton brain, because I'm not I have a lot of great guests on my podcast. I tend to be the one either saying the dumb thing out loud or representing maybe some naivete from some of the just us common folks out there. But it seems like in the country we live in now, we give the government this power, and whether it's the unions, and I say power, I'm going to combine whether it's corporatism or unions working with our government. Go back to the big union push 100 years ago. Well, it was needed, right? You don't want 11-year-olds in sweatshops or in warehouses getting taken advantage of. You don't want the workers being taken advantage of to the point they have no life. They're not getting any pay. So unions come in and they say, hey, let's use our leverage. Let's negotiate. I like that. Okay, sounds great. But then once the movement has achieved its purpose, the movement now has its own momentum. It has its own agenda. We now have the money. We have hundreds of millions of dollars. We can sway votes. We now have power. Now this is my job. So I can't really afford to come out and go, okay, everybody, unions have achieved about 80% of what we intended. We're going to pull back on the movement now. Why? Because then I lose my money. I lose my power. I lose my influence. So now I am incentivized to go out and find ways to create need for me when it may not be there as much anymore, right? Jump the shark. That's the way it goes. Same when you come to the Civil Rights Acts. Were they needed at a certain time to jar, to shake our country a little bit? Possibly. I've heard many podcasts talk about how the black community actually, as a independent black community, was actually doing better before the civil rights movement. I don't know enough about it. I know just enough about it, like karate. Until you meet somebody that knows a lot of karate, if you know a little bit and you engage with them, you'll usually lose. But I know enough that I could probably engage in a podcast on it. But that aside, yes, we started great conversations. We made some strides, absolutely. But now we're at a point where it's almost started eating itself. People now have become so entrenched in finding oppression somewhere because you're never going to get rid of oppression. Oppression, evil, racism, sexism, whatever ism and phobics you want to put out there were around way before the United States. Way before countries were formed. You've had the evils of men's hearts. I submit that the United States has put in boundaries and parameters and set high expectations that allowed us as a country to navigate those evils as better than any other country ever, right? We don't ignore the things that have happened, the bad, but we also don't make that our identity. We actually take pride in the fact of look how far we've come. Look how far we've pushed society trying to become a better society. So again, another podcast. So where am I going with this part of it? I look at the movements now, the civil rights movements, and I say civil rights, so I want to pull out, and that includes a lot of things, but the things I'm talking about are people now, their job, their cultural clout, the reason they're on the TVs, they have the podcast, they get paid for their books, right? They're organizers. They now are incentivized to find victims. If they start admitting that our country has come a long way, if they start admitting maybe we're starting to have the reverse racism, maybe we're starting to eat the actual movement, we're starting to say the things that are opposite of what we were founded on. No, you know what? We should make decisions based off your color. We should make decisions based off what you sleep with, your genitalia. We should have separate dorms, separate graduation ceremonies. You should have different rooms that are built for black people and white people or Asian people. Those people should get the scholarships. Those people shouldn't. Why? Well, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 70 years ago, this happened. Was it as bad now? No. So why do we have those same things in place? Aren't we smart enough as a society to pull back and go, wait a minute, that is racism. What happened to I want to be judged by the character of my content, the content of my character, not the color of my skin? And now when we start pushing back on this, whether you're white people, by the way, I know a lot of Hispanics and blacks and men and women and gays and straights that are on the conservative side that are pushing back on this. So don't act like it's just a KKK movement. It's not. I am not a white supremacist. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not. That's bullshit. You can step off. My problem with this is the diversity part of this is necessary. Our country is diverse. That's one of the strengths. But part of that is you lay down some of your individualism, right? You operate that on the side, but you have to buy into the collective of I am an American. There's certain things we agree to. I will assimilate, right? My pride is in being an American first and then African American if you want to be, or Irish American if you want to be, or where your family may have come from. No matter how they got here, you're part of the best country ever. Congratulations. That's the way it is. We don't live 200 years ago. We live now. We got to kind of have a mindset of how far we have come now. And so what's really odd for me is I hear these people on the talking head programs or podcasts, and they're actually trying to paint a picture. It's just as bad as it used to be, or it's this. And I'm like, no, 200 years ago, you would not have been able to say what you're saying now because the culture was different. Thank God it's changed. Thank goodness we're at a better place. But the DEI, official diversity, equity, inclusion, and you've got to be mandated. This now, we got to make decisions through the filter of what? Racism. That's how I see it. We are now going to make decisions based off how you look. We're going to give scholarships based off how you look. We're going to give data based off who you sleep with. It is antithetical to the cause. I don't see how people, I've got good friends I do podcasts with that are way left on stuff than I am, and we agree on quite a bit of stuff too, but the common sense on this doesn't jive with me. And then, and I end it with this, if you start saying, because you're against DEI, you're against diversity. I don't know of many friends of mine that are conservative, they're successful in business or in life, and I'm not saying they don't have bias. I'm not saying some of them aren't racist. I'm sure they are. They have thoughts and act in ways I probably don't even know about. But my point on it is, once they start understanding there is benefit to diversity, they're for diversity, right? I need good ideas around the table when marketing, or how to spend my money, or how to grow my business. I need a different perspective. But being a diverse society, having a diverse company, having a diverse college, whatever, has to be around the diversity of thought and how you were raised and how that has led to different outcomes. Just because you're black doesn't mean you have to vote a certain way, or Hispanic or white. Being white and saying I don't like DEI doesn't make me a racist. Being black and voting for Trump doesn't mean you're a traitor to your race. Being a woman and voting for Trump or voting for conservative principles in your state doesn't mean that you don't want choice for women and people to dictate your body. It may mean that you actually define what a woman is bigger than that one topic. And you understand it was sent back to the states. It wasn't abolished. So I guess my whole point on this is, yes, I think we should all see the value of diversity in our personal lives, in our business lives, and in our politicians. But if that is the filter we're going to go through to hire people, give stuff away, scholarships away, to do elections, I think it is not only lacking in common sense, I think it's racist.